Kerry Buck is a former Canadian ambassador to NATO, and she joins me now. Kerry Buck, it's good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Hi, my pleasure.
It's been years of people pressuring Canada and other NATO countries to get to 2%. Now they're talking about going to 5%. How do you think the news of Canada's plan today is going to be received amongst the NATO members?
Well, Canada's catching up to a world that had already changed, and the gap between what our allies were doing on security and defense and what we were prepared to do had been growing pretty wide over the last few years, many years, honestly, since the standard was first set in 2006. So I think it will be, the 2% will be received with a sigh of relief from a lot of our allies and an immediate expectation that we have to do more.
I spoke with the U.S. Ambassador, Pete Hoekstra, earlier in the show, and he had positive things to say about this announcement today by the Prime Minister. How do you think the Pentagon and the State Department are going to react to Canada finally getting to the 2% target?
I don't think they'll be surprised. There was a lot of messages. What was delivered today in the speech and then in the supplementary estimates is pretty consistent with some of the promises made during the election campaign. I don't think they'll be surprised, but I think they'll obviously be pleased. But this isn't just about the U.S. Because we had been underspending on defense and being so far away from that NATO standard, so far away from the NATO aspiration and so far away from what our allies were doing, we created an extra vulnerability for ourselves, not just with Trump, but with the other allies at the table. I mean, I heard it up close and personal when I was posted, sitting at the North Atlantic Council from allies. I saw it from allied defense ministers, foreign ministers. We needed to step up. I loved the announcement today. I think it's really visionary. It's a bit of a mic drop moment for me.
Okay, you call it visionary and a mic drop moment, but some of this is it seems to me, and help me if I'm wrong here, foundational stuff like training and recruitment, parts for maintenance. These seems like this is the bread and butter of an organization the size of the Canadian Armed Forces, right? That we're just kind of getting it to that level. I mean, what does this do in terms of increasing Canada's ability to respond to something on behalf of the alliance should something as catastrophic as Article 5 need to be invoked? I mean, is it just raising the floor of it, or are we now a much more significant player in NATO?
Well, it's a hard question you're answering because we've actually done some good and hard jobs at NATO all along. But the fact is we've been rusting out our equipment and hollowing out our people in the Canadian Armed Forces for a few decades. The last time we reached this level of defense spending was about 1989, 1990. So I said it was a mic drop moment because I was really happy to see us step up. But on the other hand, it was about 2 decades too late. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, housing is important for the Canadian Armed Forces to have. It doesn't make the capabilities, now maybe it helps you with retention and recruitment, and then the training allows you, you have to get the Canadian Armed Forces to the state of readiness where they can be deployed, because this has been one of the persistent challenges there. But, we'll see, right, how that works in terms of what the readiness percentage is by April 1 of next year. But also the signal on the defense industrial policy, that suggests some pretty big change coming there. The shift away from the United States to more self-reliance and partnership with Europe. What do you take away from that direction the Prime Minister signaled?
Well, it's going to be a really fine balance, right? You need to recognize the degree to which our existing procurements, our existing kit, plus our procurements that are in train are still locked in with the United States. And you don't want to slow down your procurement to make a political point, but at the same time, we really do have to diversify. So watch this space. What happened today in the supplementary estimates was a significant chunk of cash, but I expect to see post-summit, when the leaders agree on that new target of 3.5% on pure defense-related equipment, and then an additional 1.5% on security, related to defense. I expect to see after that, including in the budget, heading to the budget, some big ticket procurements. And then it'll be really interesting to see what can be done to help Canadian defense industry not just grow domestically, but also enter that market in Europe as Europe increases its defense spending. The amount that was announced in the supplementary estimates and in Prime Minister Carney's speech today to support Canadian defense industry is almost a down payment in our getting into new initiatives inside Europe to pool defense and R&D, which is a good thing for us, right? It's cheaper procurement of kit. You amortize the R&D costs across a much wider pool of buyers, but there are a lot of steps to happen before Canadian defense industry is ready and the EU is willing to let us into those markets.
The percentages sound very small, right? 2% of GDP. 3.5% of GDP, but when the GDP is $3 trillion, those numbers get really big. Like this is $63 billion at 2%. If you're looking at an annual sustained defense spend of 3.5%, that's $110 billion, right? That is more than transfers to seniors in this country. I mean, can a country the size of Canada with the social programs we have get to that level and sustain that level, or is there a way to do the capital expenditures and the upgrading that it sort of gets you there, but it's not an everyday, you know what I mean, not an everyday out of your operating budget approach?
Yeah. Yes, Canada can get there. I mean, we're relatively rich. Our defense spending in real dollar terms compared to other NATO allies, we, to do our share, we have to do more. And it is, the Prime Minister was right, it is in Canadians' interests. We're Canadians, I don't know if they realize it yet, but Canadians are feeling directly the negative effects of this new security environment. If you don't send the message to your adversaries that you're ready to deter and defend your own home defense, then they feel more open to doing that sub-threshold aggression that doesn't look military, but certainly has a real security impact. Foreign interference,
cyber,
capacity,
propaganda, misinformation, all of that.
Yeah, but also our critical infrastructure, it's not a good place to be if through cyber attacks or some other means that an adversary would be able to take down some of your critical infrastructure. And that's kind of the world we're in now, including, alongside a few of our European allies. So yes, it'll cost a lot. Europeans like Germany, others are in the same boat as us, and yet they're stepping up because they feel the threat more directly and acutely. The threat's just as direct to us. We just haven't kind of woken up to it. I thought we would after Russia's full-scale attempted invasion of Ukraine, and for some reason we didn't. So I'm happy to see that we're catching up to a world, as I said, that's already changed.
Yeah, no, it's a good point about proximity. Whenever we talk to the Polish ambassador, the Ukrainian ambassador, anyone from the Baltic states, they get it. They have very clear eyes on this stuff. Kerry Buck, former Canadian ambassador to NATO. We always appreciate the time. Thanks for being here.
Thanks very much.